Hallowmere series by Tiffany Trent. This is book 3 called Between Golden Jaws. Will Corinne make a deal with the Dark Fae Prince? Corinne and her friends race to London in the hopes of finding a Wrathstone that will help them end this terrible war with the Fae. The girls search the Victorian city only to find that their plan has led to more danger than ever before. With the girls' lives on the line, the Fae Prince offers Corinne a deal. Become his consort and her friends can go in peace. Will Corinne fall into the Fae Prince's arms to save her friends, or can she find another way? Chapter 1. February 24th, 1866. The Pilliwiggins' remains shivered into the air until they were little more than shimmering mist. Standing on the front steps of Fiannan Manor, where she had just witnessed the Pilliwiggins' horrible death, Corinne couldn't pay attention to anything Father Joe was trying to say. She ran down the steps and around the main house into the misty labyrinth, heedless of the shouts behind her. When she crested the little hill and entered the gazebo, she clutched her sides, gasping against the restraint of her corset. Her lungs were afire and aching, as if she had the swamp fever again. She held her face against the damp marble, unable to hear anything but her own laboured breathing. Corinne had once sworn an oath that no one, human or otherwise, would ever see her cry again. She had broken that vow by the end of her time at Falston, and many times over at Fiannan. But now Corinne longed to renew it. Crying seemed so much like admitting defeat. She yearned for someone she could trust, someone who would never betray her. The marble chilled her hands. She slipped her fingers into the scarf draped around her throat. Ewan had given it to her after the shipwreck of the Great Eastern, and later a charm to use it to call him whenever she needed him. Back then she trusted him, almost to the point of love. But that was before she had known the truth, before she had discovered that Ewan and the prince were one and the same, before she had discovered the depths of his guile and betrayal. As if listening to her thoughts, the fog breathed in a shadowed corner of the gazebo, forming into a man's shape. He stepped towards her. Ewan, the prince. Set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thy arm, for love is strong as death, jealousy is cruel as the grave, the coals thereof are coals of fire, which hath a most vehement flame. His mouth didn't move, but she heard him. Is that not what your Song of Solomon says? She didn't reply. She glanced towards the gazebo entrance, wondering if he could follow her, wondering if this meant he could now find her anywhere. You're not here, she whispered. The Pilliwiggins' death summoned me. Corinne, why do you flee from me? You took my friends. You killed... She choked. It occurred to her suddenly that perhaps neither of her parents' deaths had been accidental. Had he killed them as he had killed the girls in the alley? As he had probably killed Kenneth? Death is in my nature. This he said with a sorrow as heavy as the shadows in which he stood. As is love. Love? Corinne asked. The thought he loved her, that this murdering creature was now professing his love to her, after all he had done, it was too much. Why else do I plead with you now? Plead with me? What could you possibly expect me to do? You are young. You cannot know. His image wavered as he sighed. I know that too many have died because of you. I know that every day more are at risk because of you. I think that's all I need to know. I love you, Corinne. Is that so difficult to believe? Because, she whispered hopelessly, you killed all of those people. You are not human. I will not stop, Corinne. I let you escape before, but I will not do so again. You will be with me here in my wrath." Corin thought of the prince's decaying city, its towers gleaming with witch light. Long ago, before she knew what her dreams really were, it had seemed like such an enchanted place. But she knew now that any beauty it appeared to contain was a lie. She forced herself to stand straighter and move closer to him. And what if I don't wish to? The fog reached towards a gazebo with grey tentacles. Then I will arrange it so you have no choice. She rushed at him then, hoping to rip or tear or claw, hoping to hurt him. Her hands passed through the shadow and gripped something solid. She yanked it free. "Corin!" Miss Brown called from the entrance to the labyrinth. The mist swirled and the prince was gone. Corin closed her hand and put it behind her back. Whatever was in her palm was hard and curved, like a ring. Miss Brown entered the gazebo, her fennel petticoats peeking from under her wide wool skirt. She wore a matching jacket with black piping and large black buttons. She looked ready to go riding, if the weather were not so foul. And there were not unhallowed afoot, Caroline thought. "Corin, what are you doing out here alone? Was someone with you?" Miss Brown asked. Corin swallowed. The prince. The prince! He was here! Miss Brown came to her. Corin tried to breathe. He appeared. He said... She blushed, embarrassed by his declarations of love. He said he would take me with him to his city, wherever I wanted him or to not. Miss Brown put a hand on her forehead. "We must tell the council about this," Miss Brown said. "If he's able to enter here now, despite Mara's new wards." Corin shook her head. "I don't think it was really him. I think it was some kind of message." "Ascending!" Corin nodded. Father Joe had mentioned the term offhandedly once in a magic lesson, though he hadn't explained it further. "He shouldn't be able to do that," Miss Brown said. Corin was grateful that Miss Brown never implied that the prince's new powers were her fault, despite all the mistakes she's made. Miss Brown drew her out of the gazebo. "Come, let's see what Father Joe and Sir James think." As they entered the house, Miss Brown asked Mr. Turnbull to bring Sir James and Father Joe to the study. Mrs. Gertrude came at the ring of the bell and nodded as Miss Brown requested tea while they waited. Corin sat at the round table, remembering how Mara had leaped over in the shape of a panther, how she had bore the Kutek impostor. Corin sat at the round table, remembering how Maria had leapt over in the shape of a panther, how she had borne the Kutiaj impostor to the hearth and knocked him into the fire. Corin wondered if the magic she was learning, the heritage she possessed, would some day turn her into a beast like that. Sir James and Father Joe arrived with the tea. Mara came with Miss Gertrude and took over her task as everyone seated themselves. Corin bit her lip. It still bothered her at some level that Mara had to serve all of them in this way, even though she was the most valuable member of the council. She tried to rationalize that Mara was not a slave, but a freed servant paid a wage and allowed to come or go as she pleased. But was she really? "The prince came to Corin just now," Miss Brown said. "What?" Sir James and Father Joe said, almost simultaneously. "Corin," Miss Brown urged, nodding to her. "He came to me while I was at the gazebo. He stood in the shadows. I don't think he was really there. I think he was a—" She looked at Miss Brown. "Sending," Miss Brown offered. "Yes," Corin sighed. "And?" Father Joe said. "It took 5 seconds for his glasses to come off this time." Corin blushed. "Set me as a seal upon thine heart." "He vowed to take her to his city," Miss Brown finished for her. "The iron oath," Father Joe said. He examined his glasses and polished them again. "He is appearing in his true form in daylight, and despite Mara's wards." "What shall we do?" Sir James asked. We have two choices, stay and fight, or leave and hope for better days, Father Joe said.